Alright, what's up, people? Welcome to a bonus midweek episode. For those of you that don't know, I'm here with JC Schoonmaker. This past weekend, we had a historically good men's sprint. Both of us made the final, so there's basically a qualifier, and then the top 30 advance to what we call heats, and then there's like a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final. And there's 30 in the quarterfinals, and then it gets down to 12 in the semifinals, and then there's just 6 in the final. And for the first time in both of our lives, we qualified for the final, which was really exciting. And then JC got on the podium, which was really exciting, and I ended up in 4th, which was one of, neither of us won the race or anything like that, but, for a U.S. male skiers to go 3 and 4 in a race is relatively rare on the World Cup. It's been since the 70s when Bill Koch was racing that we consistently had U.S. athletes in the very top tier, in the 5th to 1st range. And there's been plenty of podiums, just sparsely, but anyhow. So it's kind of an exciting day. And if you watched my video from Sunday, you'll probably have noticed that I included a race picture as the thumbnail, to try and suck you Nordic fans in. So anyhow, here's some actual. I thought we would just discuss the race today. Unfortunately, I can't really show the footage from the race on the YouTube channel due to licensing issues. But the the race is online. You can find it and watch it. It was super fun, but also we'll just. I thought we would just discuss a few things today. I have a few notes here, but I thought JC should introduce himself and just say where he's from. And
yeah, hey, I'm JC Schoonmaker from Lake Tahoe, California, but now I live up in Anchorage, Alaska, and I train with APU up there. I went to college at University of Anchorage for 4 years, and yeah, we've been on the World Cup together now for 3 years.
Yeah.
Shared a room at the Olympics, shared lots of rooms at tons of other World Cup races, and yeah, I think it was actually really awesome, I think, to both make the final on that same day, because we both have been aiming for that for a while.
Yeah.
So that was pretty sweet. And we both kind of had similar trajectory in sprint racing, where we'll both make the semifinal and then get knocked out and so I mean, that was really sick to do it together.
For us, JC and I and all the US boys, but we've been racing together for a super long time. I mean, since we were 15, 14 even years old, probably. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because we grew up, about as far from each other as we could.
Yeah.
JC in Tahoe and me in Vermont, 3,000 miles apart, but we still raced together when we were really young. And kind of up through, and then we got on the World Cup at a similar time. And yeah, I think our experiences have been pretty well shared, where, each, with the way that skiing is perceived in the U.S., nothing's ever given, when you get to the World Cup, it's not a given that you're going to be competitive,
mm-hmm.
And when you get into the heats, it's not a given that you're going to be competitive in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, so I think that for us, we've sort of had to very consistently work our way through the sort of different levels, and I think at least that's how it felt for me, and I'm curious if it's the same for you.
Yeah, I feel like we've had it's not like we're doing the same thing in every race, but we've shared a lot of similar milestones,
mm-hmm.
where we both have had fast qualifiers,
mm-hmm.
and then got knocked out of the quarterfinals, and we both have had reached our first semifinal, which was both, I think, special moment when each of us did it.
Yeah.
And just things like that, kind of reaching the top 10 mark. So we've had similar milestones over the last couple of years, and for sure it's been a little while now that we've both been aiming for the final, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we both got a little bit tired of just, getting knocked out of the semis and quarters. And
yeah.
So it's, that's been almost since the beginning of last year, I feel like that we've been kind of aiming for that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that one thing that's interesting about our unique experience, sprinting. I think for the purposes of this video, we'll just talk about sprinting on the World Cup, because distance skiing is a whole other can of worms to figure out. But I found that the days when advancing through a sprint race feels the most the most effortless for me are the days when JC's also having a good one. Like a good example I would say is like, I think, in our first couple seasons, both of us would sort of randomly make semifinals every once in a while, but it was really rare, and like I randomly made a semifinal in Davos one time. You made one in Ruka. Yeah. And then, but then the sort of like the next year when we were really like counting on that semi and trying to even make the final, like there was one day in Lillehammer, I remember, where like we both, I think, surprised ourselves by just like ripping through the quarters together. And then we got into the semis and it was sort of like, we were close, but not quite. And I think that like Saturday, this week kind of felt the same for me, where like, JC was in heat 4, I was in heat 5. JC just like ripped right through, won his quarter, right into the semis, and I was like, all right, like I don't know, it just gives you a funny little like burst of motivation, because like if JC can do it, I know I can do it, and I think if JC sees it, I do it, and he knows he can do it. So it's kind of a fun thing, and I will say that sure, like we don't have good and bad days always together, but when we both are feeling good, I think we can sort of capitalize on each other's energy. Which is really fun. And I've really noticed that more than ever this weekend. Yeah. And I think like another cool like nice thing about it is in between the heats, there's just so much like kind of just nervous energy and like free space, like just time where you're not really doing anything. You're just basically trying to stay warm. So that's like the really nicest part, I think, is when we're together, then we at least can like crack some jokes and enjoy that. 100%. But when you're by yourself in that moment, it's a little bit more just like scary and just like awkward. Definitely, and it's just like so freaking easy to just start making excuses for yourself, like I think that you're, when it comes to racing, like your peers and the people who, you train with kind of hold you to a high standard. And that's why like the power of a team in an individual sport, I think is like really present here, because like for me, a mindset battle that I've had over the years is just like never being satisfied, when it comes to a sprint day, because like a sprint day is tricky because you race a qualifier and maybe people are saying, oh, it was a good qualifier, bad qualifier, whatever. Doesn't really matter, though. As long as it was good enough, there's more racing to come, and it's a level playing field after that, And I think that early in my World Cup career, was guilty of being satisfied after the qualifier. Doing a good qualifier, and then, you give yourself a little bit of, like, a break, and you say, well, I'm satisfied. Yeah. And then you're just going to get exploded out the back. So I think that with each level, maybe if your goal is to make the semi, then you make the semis and you're satisfied. You have no chance of making the final, So I think that like having a teammate there, especially, someone who you're good friends with, like really helps with the sort of like motivation. Because like there was points on Saturday where I wanted to be satisfied, but I'd go and talk to JC, and JC would be like, no, dude, like we're doing it. Like I'll see you in that semifinal. Like, and maybe he had the same experience for me. And I think that like, I don't know, again, kind of the power of the team was really cool. Yeah. One moment was before our semifinal, because we were actually going to be in the same one. So we both talked to each other a little bit. And we didn't really come up with so much of a game plan as to just like, we kind of helped each other prepare for what might happen out there. Because we were maybe trying to figure out if it was going to be a fast heat so we could get lucky loser. Because that means like 4 people move on instead of 2. Right. And like, I was like kind of in the back, and Ben was like up at the front of the race. And honestly, like, I think part of going through in that heat was that I saw him up there and I was just like, all right, like I can get up there too. Right. I need to. Where almost sometimes it would be kind of easy to like sit in the back and be a little bit more timid. Yeah. But I think because both of us were there, we were like, had a lot more confidence, and like we both like controlled that heat. And that was really cool too, because that was one of the first times that we've done that together. Yeah. And like it was actually kind of like team tactics, like the closest thing you can get pretty much. Yeah, it was so sick. And yeah, another one was like in the final, in the final on the start line, the announcer who was in the stadium, probably not the one that you would have heard on TV, but the announcer was in the stadium, said, oh, it's USA versus Norway. And I was like, fuck yeah, it is USA versus Norway. Because it was 4 Norwegians and 2 US guys, and that was it in the final. And like, that's pretty rare. So, and yeah, that was really motivating and super fun. Did you ever like doubt yourself on Saturday, or were you just like 100% confident? Yeah, I mean, I definitely doubted myself. I think after each heat, it's so hard not to. Like seriously, especially after like after the quarterfinal, I crossed the finish line, and like for 5 minutes after, I was just like still breathing super hard. I was still so tired,
And I think I told you, I was like, because we were going in the same semi after you finished, and I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that again.
Yeah.
Like, I felt so tired.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And then as soon as we got out there, I, like, started feeling good again. And, like, it was the same with the final. Like, before the final, I was like, I don't know. I mean, made it to my first final. Like, you have this feeling of, like, that you're accomplished there because you already made this milestone.
Yeah.
And I think I did a good job of, like, telling myself, like, no, we got to go for the podium.
Yeah.
But there was still a doubt of, like, all right, do I have, like, the endurance to make it through this final? Like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's doubts all day. But I feel like kind of, like, everyone has those. It's just kind of, like, you have to redirect your mind, like, super quickly.
Right.
And just, like, get out of those thoughts as quickly as possible and jump into, like, the productive ones. Or the constructive ones.
Yeah. I always envision, or, like, you know, you maybe, like, visualize your mindset for a sprint day. And, like, I've always thought to myself, like, during hard workouts in the summer, I've always visualized myself on the start line of a final, you know, and just being, like, having the, like, grit and tenacity to just believe in myself and believe in my fitness and everything and just go out there and race as hard as I can, you know? But it's so funny how when that actually comes, your head is just like a jumble of, I can't do it because of this. I've never been here before. I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm tired from a previous heat or something like that, and it's just, like, so easy to, it's so easy to sort of doubt or, like, I don't know, get a little, like, second thought, and I just think that doing it more will help, for sure, and just racing more always helps with that, but a good example, I guess, is now, like, I total line in a quarterfinal, and I almost never doubt myself. I really, and I don't always make it through quarterfinals, neither of us do, but, like, I think at least I total the line with, like, 10 times the confidence that I did a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Compared to the first year on World Cup.
Yeah.
That was, like, the same feeling as... That was even less confidence than I had in the final on Saturday, I would say, in, like, those quarterfinals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never know what's going to happen. Like, you can always... The competition is, like, out of your control, and, like, we're racing against really fast guys every weekend.
Right.
So you never know if you're going to move on, but I think, like, having that confidence is a huge part of it, because... Then at any point in the race, you feel like you can move on, and you're, like, searching for, like, pathways and, like moves through the race that you can move on through.
Exactly.
Whereas if you have, like, the doubts in the race, then as soon as something happens where it makes it tougher to move on, it's pretty easy to, like, stop. Like, it's not like you're stopping trying, but you're not, like, looking for the route to get to the finish in first as well as you would.
It's almost like you just sort of, when you're confident, you're adapting and you're finding ways to get through the people and get to the finish first. And when you're doubting yourself, you're sort of just waiting for that person to go by you, you know, and for your opportunities to slip away. And it's so funny because, like, we race so many times in both mindsets, and it's it's crazy the power of just, like, confidence, because you know, we talk about tactics a lot and specific things and having perfect skis and all this stuff, but I feel to myself that, like, on those days where you're just, like, in the flow state or whatever, and it's just, you're confident in yourself, and it's just effortless.
Yeah.
You know, like, it just always works out. So anyhow, it was really cool that, like, on Saturday, it just happened back to back to back, you know, which was super dope. But, and then another thing too, I was just kind of thinking about, and everyone always asks about it too, is like how like this changes the future, you know, and like, I don't know, I don't know what I've said to the people over the last couple days, but I kind of feel like what we were just talking about is how it changes. You know, it's just like another thing to check off the list.
Yep.
And another thing to be like, well, I've done it before.
Yeah.
You know, and I can do it again.
Yep. Definitely.
I feel like that's how it changes it, really. But maybe there's more.
Just a little, just having that added confidence.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, that's kind of it. Doesn't really change a whole lot. Like, you still have to go into every heat being, like, super hungry and, like, aggressive. But just knowing that we can do it is a huge, like...
Totally.
It's almost like a relief.
Yeah.
I think I told you, like, after that day, like, every other race that we've done where you get knocked out and you don't quite reach that goal of the final feels, like, so painful, because it's almost like you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do it. Like, every time it's just a reset, and then you have to amp yourself up to do it again. Yeah. But after that day, I don't think that those are going to be as painful anymore, because now we know what we can do. Right. And so if you don't move on, it's like maybe it wasn't your day, but at least you know that you can the next time. Yeah. And you don't have to, like, do quite as much, like, amping yourself up, psyching yourself up to be like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, because we just know that we can. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and again, it's like, it's really just no different
than every other milestone. Like, sure, it's the sort of top of the pyramid, so it's a harder one to get often.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the same as every other milestone because I remember back to when I was, first starting on the World Cup, and I was like, I approached a qualifier like it was like the end all be all.
Yep.
Because I just wanted to get into the heats, and now, like, seriously, I feel like, I still warm up hard and I still go extremely hard in the qualifiers, but like, there's not that nervousness. I just have some confidence. Totally. I toe the line in the qualifier, and like, I know that, if I push myself and if I do a bunch of things in my control, then like chances are pretty good it's gonna work out pretty well. So that's a nice feeling, and then of course there's uncertainty later in the game. So it's an interesting thing, and it'd be kind of fun to do another one of these in like 3 years and see.
Yeah, definitely.
See where we're at. Just like it's fun to document sort of the mindset now, right? Because again, if we had done this one in 2021, we would have said, we're starting to feel good about the qualifier, or whatever, but like we're really unsure in the heat. So now we've made some progress, and it'll be fun to keep after it. Yeah. But and the other thing too that I always think is interesting, just like throughout all of sport and whatever, even just life. Like when you really work at something and you really want it, I always think it's sort of interesting to reflect on like how it feels to like achieve a lifelong goal. Like surely a World Cup podium is like something that you thought about and dreamed about or whatever for a long time. And I think it's interesting to think about, like, does it feel validating? Are you sort of like kicking back and being like, hell yeah, I did that? Or does it just immediately have you looking at the next thing or trying to do it again or whatever?
Definitely a little bit of both. Yeah. Like, I mean, that whole afternoon after we had the race and everything, I didn't really feel real. Like the whole podium ceremony, all that stuff, like it was a blur. Like that was like a crazy, like just mix of emotions. And, like, can't even really describe that. Now it's definitely like, I feel good, like walking around, like it does feel validating. Yeah. And like just knowing that I did that, and like, it's really nice, I think, to, when you reach a goal like that and dream like that, it's nice to enjoy it for a little bit.
Totally, yeah.
But there's also definitely like, we got another race this Friday. Yeah. And like, it would be sick to do it again or do even more, like get both of us on the podium. Right. So there's definitely a mix of like enjoying this, just like really trying to enjoy the moment. Like, it's pretty awesome. Like tons of people are saying congrats and like things like that, totally, and reaching out. And, but also like, it's a long season ahead. Like that's the crazy part is I don't think either of us really expected to do this early in the season. Yeah. So definitely got a ways to go, but
definitely. Yeah, no, I think that's like a pretty good way to go about it, because like, obviously, like I wasn't on the podium, so that's still a goal that's out there for me. But there's other things in life that like I've worked hard towards and then achieved, and then too quickly just fixated on the next thing. Yeah, you don't necessarily like give yourself the credit you deserve. And I think that with something like a podium, you really are gonna like, you're gonna feel the effects. Like you get some prize money. Yeah, you get a lot of congratulations, and it's hard to not be proud of yourself. But it's good that you are, because it was seriously impressive and really just awesome for all of us. But certainly, like, makes you want to get on top of the podium, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. 100%.
For sure. Like one day it's gonna happen. I mean, I don't know. It's a fun thing to think about.
It's a fun thing to think about. Yeah. I mean, it's cool to think about that. Like we're gonna be like just fighting against each other for that like top step.
Totally.
And it's gonna be fun battles, and I think like the cool thing I think to talk about too is like just how competitive the sprint field is right now.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one thing we talk about every race, because we're always looking at the heat selection, and we're just like, oh man, like which heat do we want to go? And they all look so hard. Totally. And like the guys that are out there racing are just insane. Like,
they're strong.
I mean, I was feeling the best I have felt in a long time, and Claybo and Volness both just still zoomed by me in that final. Totally, like I was moving backwards. Yeah. And so like there's still a ways to go, and like there's other guys who didn't have such a good race, but there's guys that are fighting every single week to do that. Yeah. So that's pretty sick too.
Yeah, I mean it comes back to we didn't even talk about that earlier, but another thing for those that don't know is like a unique aspect of sprinting on the World Cup is that when you qualify, the top 30 advance, and what you do is you choose what group you want to be in, basically. So there's 6, we call them heats, and you choose which heat you want to go into. And even if you qualify super well, you know, there's always these things that happen where, like, you know, the best guys always take the first couple of heats.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, like, me and JC, you know, we maybe are some of the best guys, but we don't think of it that way. So we always take some of the last heats, you know? But then, like, the last heats will always get a bunch of the, like, sort of middle, like, the people who qualify, like, 10, 11, 12, 13. You know, they're all going to the heat 4 and 5. And it's just, like, it's just so hard because, again, like, it's a really deep field. And, you know, there's probably 10 to 20 guys who could be on the podium in any given day. And, like, obviously, a lot of there's like 3 guys who are on the podium every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll be choose a heat and feel good about it, and then all of a sudden like 4 fast guys will go in here and you'll be like, oh god, you know, and it is just like so unproductive because you know, I'll always look at my heat and be like, why did I get such a hard heat? And then I'll look at JC's heat and be like, God, JC got a super hard heat too. And then we'll like JC sort of reminded on Saturday, we took a step back and we were like, all right, I mean, they all look
horrible. Like they all look tough to move on from.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys have been doing it for a long time, so there's just a bunch of guys who have been on the podium.
Right, yeah.
Or who have been in sprint finals like consistently.
Yeah.
So you see their names like Pellegrino, Juve, even though they're not having like maybe the best start to the season ever.
Yeah.
Even if they don't qualify well on that day and you qualified really well, if you're going up against Pellegrino, you're going to be like, oh,
right, he's going to be fast. Like,
yeah, you know he's going to be fast.
Totally. And like but I will say one of the other really cool things about like the process is that once upon a time people would choose heats that we were in because they were going to be easy.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think that happens as much anymore.
I don't think
I think that's something to be really proud of.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to, you know, feel like you're doing well and feel like you're achieving your goals, but it's another thing to sort of impose upon your competitors that you're legit.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I know for a fact that it's happening for you, and I think it's happening for both of us, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow.
That is cool to just not be like the Americans.
Yeah,
they
exactly,
know, like,
right.
even if they have a top, like, 5 qualifier or whatever, they're, like, just the vultures are, like, preying on us, like, oh, this will be an easy quarterfinal with these dumb guys in here.
Totally.
So that's kind of just nice to...
And sometimes it is easy.
Yeah, sometimes we make it easy for them.
No, sometimes we make it easy, but other times we make it hard. So, yeah, super fun. But that's pretty much all I had to discuss. Kind of fun deep dive on Saturday. But if you guys have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will answer them. And, yeah, let me know if you want to see more. Like, I think it's kind of fun to do these conversations and get a deeper insight into what goes on the World Cup. And we could do it with Jesse too, you know, or Rosie, cool. Or Julia. Surely, like, you know, when this happens again, we'll be back because we, like, you know, this is where we sleep. It's easy to get JC for a quick chat, but if you guys are interested in hearing from Jesse or Rosie, I can make that happen too. So, yeah, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.
See you guys.
And for cheering. See you later.